Hola, hola, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. And today, mi gente, I usually have some sort of understanding of things that we're talking about. Sometimes I don't, but this is absolutely one of these subjects that I have zero idea about. So I'm very excited because I have somebody who does know what all of these things about. And okay, you know what? I should have asked you beforehand. Do you say Alain or Alan?
Um, Alain,
Okay. I just want to I figured based on how it's spelled, but you never know. So you got to ask, right?
of course. No,
I
no, absolutely.
have Alain Romero. He is the co-founder of Azucenas Hardwoods, and we will talk about all of that. He is the co-founder of Las Azucenas, a tropical hardwood restored forest. The project is designed to give the average citizen the ability to invest in tropical hardwood cultivation one tree at a time. Again, know nothing about this, so you're literally going to have to walk me through all of this like I'm a toddler learning how to walk for the first time.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Jessica, good to be here with you.
Well, before we get into the chisme and how you got into this and all of those things, we always start with the wine. Now, I know it's prior to noon but I'm the wine and cheese man. I can't not drink wine, but are you drinking wine today? You just got your water, your cafe, or what's going on?
Yeah, no, I'm drinking some espresso,
So, see, I had a
coffee.
feeling. I already had mine, and I was like, okay, I got it. So today, I'm actually drinking a Chardonnay from Solorio Family Wine. Solorio is definitely a friend of the podcast, and it is a vintage 2019 from Contra Costa County. And I don't know if you're aware, but when it has a year, that means all of the grapes are from that year. If it doesn't
Mm,
have a year, usually that means that, not always, but usually it means that there's probably juices from a couple of different years that are blended together to make that wine. But when it
got
has
it.
a year, it means it's all from that same vintage. So they've actually been on the podcast. I've had uh Solorio on the podcast and Mario, and he has some amazing. They're so good. Uh so if you have the chance, make sure you go try them out. Hopefully, we actually got connected through your significant other, Abigail. So she's the one who was like, "Oh, he needs to be on your podcast." And I was like, "All right." I very much trust my friends in regards to
Yes,
people that they think. Um, so let's just get into it. Are you ready, Alain?
absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, Jessica.
yay! Oh wait, let me say salud.
Salud, salud.
I'm try. This is the first time I've tried his Chardonnay, so ooh, it's really appley and citrusy. Ooh, I really like this. I really like this. It's kind of green at the end. And I had to rinse out my
Mm,
mouth because I already had my coffee. And the last thing you want is to mix coffee and wine. So I had my coffee, had to drink some water to get all that flavor out. And now I could drink the wine and
yes.
actually enjoy it.
Yeah, no, no. I love having wine in the morning. I think usually tasting happens in the mornings, right? And when you go to the vineyards,
Yeah,
it's
you know what? There's a lot that open around 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock. And then, yeah, they're usually not into that nighttime. They're usually like late morning into late afternoon. And then but
yes.
yeah. So I'm excited. I'll be, this year has been a very, whatchamacallit, like very eventful time for me in Napa because I've been in Napa several times this year. And I was always like, oh, I need to go more often. And
Mm,
this year I'm absolutely taking that challenge to heart to go more often and everything because I want to be able to share more
yeah.
stories. So, but otherwise, like, anyways, back to your story. Um Alen, I am very interested to see, like, because I love, like, I think we are always trying, especially with global warming and everything, we're always trying to be better, right? Be better in regards to what's happening around us, whether it's recycling or whether it's not doing fast fashion, or like all of these things impact our environment. But I'm really interested in regards to how you grew up, and if that's something that you ever thought of growing up was the environment. Is that something like you just really grew up into, or is that something you ended up kind of getting into later in life?
Um, my appreciation for trees. My grandmother gave me my appreciation for trees. She had a couple of beautiful jacarandas um, outside, uh, outside of her house, on the sidewalk, you could say. And I remember her teaching me how to climb trees, um, and that was very grounding for me.
Hmm.
I remember later, after learning how to climb trees, she would, I would just gravitate towards the tree whenever I needed to ground myself. Um, but I wouldn't say that I grew up an environmentalist. I think I went later in life, during my college years, I went to school in Santa Cruz.
Hmm.
I grew up in Mexico City, and when I went to college, I wanted to be far away from the cities. I wanted to experience a little bit of small town feel. So I went to Santa Cruz, and there my appreciation for the environment and environmental, let's say, activism and projects took on a different life. So I would
I
say, yeah,
No, I mean, growing up in Mexico City, I mean, that's very, very opposite, because it's super like concrete jungle, right? It's very like, I know that there's other things, but the history of Mexico City with in regards to, it used to not be such a landlocked area, correct? Didn't it used to have um like lakes and rivers, and this is like his years and years and years and years and like years and years and years and years ago. But now it's such a metropolitan city. It's really big. It's one of the largest cities in the world. And I can't imagine, like, yeah, you probably don't think about I would imagine, like, you don't necessarily think about the environment, right? Growing up in that type of thing. But what made you like crave that small town to come over to the US to be able to go to college?
I think people along the way, people that I met, I remember meeting, um, making friends with um, someone from Denmark when I was a teenager, someone that was living in the US sort of for the summer. And I remember her telling me that, I said, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I remember her telling me that she wanted to study trees. And that blew me away. I, I, I didn't know that studying trees was a thing. So I would say that people along the way, little by little, opened my curiosity and my eyes to the environment.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it was through conversation with people that I started to become curious, and then my curiosity led to things that I gravitated to and material that I gravitated to when I was in college. I would say, like, the word sustainability was something that was very intriguing and attractive. That whole concept.
Hmm.
Yes. So I would say it was through people.
Wow, I love that, because we get so much from the people that, and probably she probably doesn't even realize the impact that that had on you, right? We have conversations with people every single day, and we walk away, especially with somebody that we think we'll never see again. We walk away just going, oh, okay, that was great. But they may have said something that you walk away going, oh crap, I never thought of that. Or vice versa, right? Like we just never know the impact that we're going to have with our words and just having a conversation. So I think that's so cool that you just kind of started gravitating toward this based on the conversations that you were having. Um, so you were saying that you started getting into this in college. So tell me how that ended up happening in regards to you getting, you have this conversation with this woman from Denmark. You end up going to Santa Cruz to go to college. How does that mesh into environmentalism?
Yeah, so more stories of people along the path led me to Santa Cruz. Um, my my impression was that Santa Cruz was going to be a little bit of a place where I was going to find um, things that I was very attracted to, like the environment. I was already very attracted to the ocean, so I used to swim. I used to go for swims in the ocean, and I was already very attracted to nature, and I wanted more of that. I wanted to experience more of nature, and so the campus at Santa Cruz was the ideal. Let's say versus going to a campus like UCLA, for example, which was in the middle of the city. I had already experienced, living and growing up in a large city, and I gravitated towards a more tranquil, peaceful, more nature-based type of environment. And so that is what what took me to Santa Cruz, and I definitely found everything that I was looking for there.
And then did you ever take like classes on environmentalism and like what was kind of, you go through college, you obviously are finding this more peaceful environment that you wanted versus a city life, like this small kind of thing. And then like once you graduated college, did you know, like did you know once you left environmentalism was what you were going to do, or what was that path to be able to get to eventually where you're at now?
So I would say that during those years, formative years, I would say that there was always a big calling, um, a big calling for, uh, let's say, going down my own path. So not following someone else's path or dreams. So I would say that the calling for following my dreams began at an early age, being independent, really really struggling, working for big corporation or things that were already established. I already had a big calling for following my dreams and creating things newly, I would say. So more of that happened and took place in Santa Cruz. I also remember, my mother used to tell me, kind of guide me along the way, and I remember her telling me that I should look into economics. So I ended up studying economics, and it was something that I really enjoyed. And and while I was in college, I always sought to incorporate, let's say, economic theory into my life, into the things that I was creating. So I would say, yeah, my thirst for creation and following my dreams kept getting fed even while I was in college. And I say even while I was in college because I think a lot of times colleges are meant to, um, for us to gain training, for us to serve um, institutions and corporations. So that is typically what universities that are funded by big corporations and institutions, they are a place for us to train so that we can then serve uh, the institution or the corporation. And so nevertheless, I was always looking at ways in which I could apply the information and the theories to create something new, which is what I ended up doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all I think I've said this before. Like, I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I mean, I knew I was going to grow up being just independent as far as taking care of myself, right? Like being able to take care of myself. That doesn't mean like negating having a partner or having a boyfriend or anything like that. Just for me, I was like, I needed to be able to take care of myself before anything else.
Yeah.
Um, but I never had those dreams of being an entrepreneur or anything like that. And so I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. And but I love hearing the stories of people who just have that inkling from a really young age and have people who are able to support them. And sometimes people, I think, even if people don't necessarily realize what that's going to be, they just know that it's going to be, right? They don't know what it's going to be. They just know it's going to be. So I think that's really, really,
Yes, and sometimes, yeah, no, the way it occurs is it's a constant struggle with society and with the people that are close to you, like your parents and your friends, and just people trying to make sense out of um, the fact that you don't want to follow, the establishment
mhm.
or
So
the
did
way
you,
things are.
right? I know. And now it's like, I think so many of us see where we fit and where we don't fit in. And I think there's a lot of, you know, Latinas right now are the largest, they're the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs and business owners. But I think that's a lot. Oftentimes, when you feel like you're not fitting in anywhere, you're just like, well, I fit in where I am at. So I'm gonna make something, based on what I love and what I'm at and what I'm doing. So I think there's a lot more quote unquote accidental entrepreneurs but we just don't talk about how it becomes accident. So I love that. But there's a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself who aren't accidental. You knew exactly what you wanted. You knew exactly that you wanted to become
I
not on the beaten path, but just not what everybody expects you to do from a very early age. So when was that first exposure to like truly like you grew up, you have this connection to this tree and your grandma, which I get. My grandma had a huge olive tree in her front yard that we used to climb all the time. And, but then there has to be something that clicks where you're like, you know what? This is where I see my future. At what point was that?
So there was always a big calling, and about 8 years ago, I was invited. So what ended up happening is I ended up down the road of real estate, because real estate as a so I started working with banks, then I became a real estate broker, then I started doing real estate development, and I live in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles started becoming really small. So what I mean by that is I started, competing for the same deals with the same people. So it started to become a small, like a fishbowl is the way it felt, very constricted. And I was invited to a Nicaraguan real estate presentation in Beverly Hills. And I thought I wanted something different, something completely different in a different place. And I thought I was going to go learn about resort property, beachfront resort property in Nicaragua, by the way that the seminar was worded and the images and everything. And a lot of it was about that. But along that path, I met Alex Wilson. Alex Wilson is an Englishman, and during his presentation, Alex started talking about trees and about investing in trees, and he started talking about the concept of impact investment, um, trees as an asset preservation vehicle, started talking about green returns, right? So all of those concepts are very clear when you think of an olive tree, right? You plant an olive tree, and for many decades, it gives you olives or
Right.
oranges. But what Alex was talking about is, he was talking about precious hardwood. So typically it isn't that you haven't heard about investing in trees because they're all over the Central Valley. It's the concept of investing in precious hardwood, or the concept of trees as an asset preservation and green returns vehicle, that is something new. We also grow up with the understanding that money doesn't grow on trees, when in reality money best grows on trees, in fact. So it was through meeting Alex and shadowing Alex and spending a few years with Alex, and learning what he was doing, that um, that my calling was fed. I I felt I had never experienced a business model where you're investing in the environment, and it's all typically in the Central Valley, or in the way we cultivate in around the world, is it's a little bit of it's bittersweet because a lot of pesticides are used. And so
Right.
the concept of let's say a green business gets overshadowed by all the conversations around Monsanto and pesticides and things like that. And for the first time, all of the theory and all of the things that I had heard in college was being applied, and so and so that began to feed into my thirst for learning more about it and seeing um, how I could become part of that.
And so you have this. I really want to get into what your business is, because I am like on your website and there's so much information, but I am not processing it. So, so you have Las Azucenas Tropical Hardwood Forest, and your business buys tropical hardwood trees. And it says, learn how tropical hardwood trees can deliver excellent financial, social, and environmental returns.
Yes,
So please explain to me. I mean, I think I'm kind of understanding it, but I think there's a lot that I don't understand. So
yes,
by what I'm reading on the website is really people are investing in plots of land with trees, because as the population grows, which according to your website, the United Nations expects the world's population to increase by 2 billion over the next 30 years. So instead of using concrete and steel, the sustainable way is to now use timber. So I do have a couple of questions in regards to that, because I feel like we've heard that there's been a lot of destruction of forests in order to build. So how, so I'm like, so I get, so what's happening with those trees? Are those trees not being used to build? Are they just being used as, like, are they just being put in the chip? Like, do you understand my, like, kind of where I'm thinking? I'm very kind of
yes,
just a little bit confused on that.
yes. No, no, of course. So a statistic that I think is worth bringing up is 75% of arable land, which means 75% of the land that we can use to grow food or other things
Mhm.
on, has been degraded. Okay, you've heard of monoculture. So when you drive down the Central Valley, there's only one thing being grown.
Right.
So we grow a lot of one thing at a time, and that leads to degradation. Degradation means when the land becomes um, depleted.
Of
So
its
the way we
minerals and things
cultivate,
like that,
the
right?
way of minerals and nutrients.
Yeah.
Okay, what we do is we take these depleted industrial sites, which could be a cattle ranch. Inevitably, when we do something, only one thing of something, we end up depleting the land. And so what we do is we take degraded or depleted plots of land, and we restore them, we bring them back, and when we create a high value ecosystem, in this case by planting high value tropical hardwood. So it's not that we're going out and buying forests and cutting them down. It's that we take depleted or degraded land, we establish a new forest as a farm of different species, native species of high value tropical hardwood, and we cultivate that. And there's nothing new in that. It had been done, but typically we've done it by buying existing forests, not us, but typically the way it's done is banks and corporations and the people that have generational wealth have purchased forests, they cut them down and they use the wood. The way we're doing it is we're taking what's been left behind and creating a new ecosystem, planting new trees, and giving individuals the opportunity to invest in a single tree, for example. That is what is innovative and different in the way we're doing it.
Ah, okay. So people can invest in a single tree that would be used for something else instead of like, okay, I get that now, which makes a lot of sense because you're right. We hear that all the time. We hear that, or I've heard that. I don't know if everybody else has heard that. If you haven't heard it, like I have heard that the land, that so much of our land, because of the pesticides, because I guess of the mono farming and the monoculturing, that our land across the country and probably across the world has lost minerals and nutrients and all of these things because we're constantly pulling from it and never giving back. So what you're saying is now we're giving back by planting these trees so we can continue to use them. How long is that life cycle? Because you invest in a tree and trees take a long time to grow, and not only just grow, but grow large enough that you can use them for timber.
Yes. So what we've created is a marketplace where people can sell their trees. So people can buy trees and then hold them for some time, and then they can sell them to other people, essentially. So that is something else that we've done. We've incorporated technology to create a marketplace for trees. Um, we've also invested in technology to monitor the trees. So we work with a Swiss platform called Open Forest Protocol, where our trees are monitored every 6 months. They are monitored, and um, also the platform measures for carbon absorption. So it's another thing that this Swiss platform does. Um, but yes, trees typically that is something else about tropical hardwoods is typically we we believe that it takes a long time. And what I
Mm.
mean by a long time is if you were to take a guess as to how long it takes for a tropical hardwood to mature, most people would say 50 years or something like that. Where we grow our trees, it takes less than 20 years for a tree of this type to mature. So let's say you can hold your tree for 5 years and then sell it and get and make money essentially. So what we're doing is we are working within a model that is known as impact investment. So let me walk you through that. Impact investment means that our business, our farm, generates impacts, and it generates three types of impacts. Environmental, because we're taking a depleted farm and we're bringing it back as a new ecosystem, thriving ecosystem. Social, because in the part of the world where we grow our trees, these are remote parts of the world. We're providing jobs to communities, indigenous communities. So we work closely with indigenous communities in the tropics, which is where tropical hardwoods grow the best. Our initiative and let's say our first farm and proof of concept is out of Guatemala, northern Guatemala. Most people don't realize that in northern Guatemala, there's an area known as the Mayan biosphere, and most of us don't realize that the Mayan biosphere is the second largest, let's say, group of trees. It's like the second largest um, uh, place where trees are protected. The first is the Amazon forest. The second is the Mayan biosphere. So the two biggest concentrations of trees around the world are in the American continent. So
That's
one, the
so,
Amazon. Mhm.
yeah, no, I mean, because you hear all of these things, obviously, with the previous president of Brazil, there was a lot of
Mm.
wiping out of rainforest because he was on the pay, like he was getting paid from one of the meat producers, one of the largest meat producers, to get rid of that so they could continue to use it as cattle farms so they can raise more things. So I know that that's been a really big um like there was an uproar because he was displacing indigenous people, and he was allowing people like corporation, this one corporation I forget, and it's where most of the world gets their meat. I forget what the name of that corporation is. um and so to
Yes.
see that you're doing like, and I think it's going to take a long time for that to recover because in the rainforest, but to know that there's another place that this is happening. No, or not this, not the raising of a forest, but that there's another place where you are actually giving back. I think that's just a really cool thing because we're in this time of global warming, and we're just taking from our earth. We're not giving anything back. So to know that you can invest in something that's giving back is, I think, a very really cool concept, because I think a lot of people do want to give back, particularly from communities of color, because our ancestors grew up in those ways. And to know that we can do something to give back after taking so much, I think, is a very cool concept. Are people able to, like, how you said they can invest in a single tree, they can invest in plots, like, because I was looking at the thing, and it like your one, not your one sheet, like your PDF of all of the information of the options and stuff. And it looks like there's investment options from basically like 50,000 to I think almost 5 million. If somebody
Yes.
doesn't have that, so how does that work in regards to if somebody's like, I would love to do this, but I don't have $1,000.
The so the site currently um, has options for people that want to invest a minimum of $50,000. Um, but we also have a citizen participation model uh, where where people can buy a single tree. So if anyone is interested in buying a single tree, or 5 trees or 10 trees, I have clients that buy a tree every month. I have one of the things that I wanted to do, Jessica, is I created an investment fund a few years ago, working with Alex, and that led me with, again, the desire and the curiosity to create something that would allow anyone to participate in the cultivation of tropical hardwood, because I believe it is um, not only something that generates good impacts, but it's also something that I think everyone should have the ability to participate in. So let's say here in California, when you drive to through the Central Coast, in reality, it's only a few families that 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 own those farms and that have been growing food for generations. In the same way with trees, it's a few families that typically own forests and hand down those forests throughout generations. And so I wanted to create a citizen participation initiative so that anyone could do it. And a big dream of mine, and I've had conversations with the Guatemalan government, is a lot of immigrants, and this is a dynamic all over the world. People migrate seeking employment opportunities, and after years, decades, they go back to their countries typically, the majority of them without anything to fall back on. So they go back without any retirement funds. So they work a lifetime, let's say here in the United States, only to go back to their country without assets.
Right.
And so imagine um, for migrants having the ability to invest in a green asset, um, something that is within their means, and then go back and have this nest egg for their retirement. So I don't advocate, and I'm not saying that people should put all their money in trees. I'm just saying having the ability to invest and diversify and
Right.
have as part of your portfolio have an allocation in trees is definitely something that I do, something that I believe in, and that's why I've created initiatives like this to give anyone the opportunity to participate in that. So
Eh,
yes, on our site, we recently have shifted from a citizen participation only model um, into more of now our initiative serves um, people with a lot of resources, which is typically people that traditionally understand about investing in trees,
mhm.
only because one of our big missions is expansion. So since we're in expansion, we have to begin to work with um, the very wealthy. But we do have a citizen participation model available to anyone, and that's not going to go away.
So I actually found your impact investment calculator, and it is very affordable for a single tree. So if you wanted to start out with a single tree, it is actually really affordable for, I mean, for not everybody, obviously, but it's not as overwhelming. I will say that it's not as overwhelming because I went to look at it and I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. Right. I could do a single tree and then maybe get
Yes,
another tree eventually and then maybe another tree eventually. But so I think that's super important to be able to. I'm so glad you shared that because when you just look at the main thing, it looks very overwhelming. You're like, I don't have that kind of, I mean, for me, I'm sure there are people that do have that kind of money that listen. I personally don't. So then when you said that and I looked at I was like, okay, that's something that I could do. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know you said it takes 20 years for your trees to mature and then be able to at that point they are they are turned into timber at that point, or how do you decide like when it's time, how much, because you want to obviously continue to grow these trees beyond just a one and done, right?
yes. Tropical hardwoods have a life cycle, and when the tree matures is when we uh, use it. Another part of the story is that there's a big demand for trees and for tropical hardwood in particular. Tropical hardwoods have a particular use. So the big thing that you mentioned in in the page and the statistics is that there is a growing population. So over the next 30 years, not in 30 years, but over the next 30 years, there will be 2 billion more people on the planet. So the big question becomes, how are we going to feed them and how are we going to house them? And as an economist, these are things
Lord
that I
knows
am
we're already experiencing that, so it's going to be even, it's only going to become a greater urgency.
right. And so if we continue down the path of housing people using concrete and steel, which is the way that it's done around the world, here in the United States, we are way ahead of the curve because, as you know, we build our frames with wood
Right.
already. Well, the way we do things here is only going to grow and expand around the world. And so the demand for timber and tropical hardwood um, is going to grow significantly. So we know that. We know that, and it's undeniable, and we can see it. So there's a lot of examples of now. One thing is building houses and house frames with wood. Another thing is doing it for buildings. Typically, buildings have been built from steel and concrete. Well, all of that is changing, and it's called mass timber or layered wood, and it's essentially engineering wood in order for it to serve as structural elements like pillars.
Hmm. Wow,
So
really?
yes, so steel and concrete are being replaced by the use of wood. And so what that means is that we're going to need to plant a lot of trees. And so this is the reason why we've shifted the focus of our site from a citizen participation only model to now beginning to attract and serve a wealthier client, a wealthier population. It's also less work for us because um, these are people that understand green assets that are looking for impact investment. But again, it's great to be on your show because I do want to let people know that our citizen participation model is well and alive. And if anyone is interested in investing in one tree a month, 10 trees, 20 trees, whatever it is, it's available. And so the way that works is each one of our trees has an inventory number. So what we do is we transfer the ownership of the tree like you would a car
Hmm.
through a bill of sale. So you receive a bill of sale and a separate management contract. And so for the price of the tree, which is $450, you receive a bill of sale and a management contract. And so we are committed to managing and cultivating the tree through its mature life. Once it matures, we find a market for it, and then that's when the investment is fully realized. Let's say once the tree matures and
So
it's
just
sold into
as a
the
reminder,
into the
this is
market.
truly an investment. This is not something that you're like, because I think sometimes we think of, oh, well, let's do this real quick, but it's truly an investment for the long haul that you're investing this money into, correct?
For the long haul, and maybe not so much for the long haul. Let's say you say, I want to make an allocation of money into trees for the next 5 years. You can do that, and then we have a marketplace where people will want to buy a tree that's 5 years old. That there will be people that will want to save 5 years and want to get in on a tree that's 5 years old. At that point, the tree will be worth roughly about $1,000. So you can double your money in about 5 years. So you invest 450. Let's say you sell your tree for about 1,000 in 5 years, and that's roughly how it would work. But yes, we have a platform, a marketplace where tree owners can sell their trees to other tree owners and to other people.
That is, I mean, that's awesome. I think, how does that, well, you if this is something you guys are interested in and everything, please go to us the azucenas.org. I will make sure that the link to the website is in. What do you see like in the future? Like what's the next step? Obviously, well, I feel like you've shared the next step, right? In regards to having these opportunities for larger investors to invest in plots of land. I think it starts at like a half an acre to acre plus. Um, what do you think I see based on your website that tropical woods is mahogany, cedar, and rosewood, correct?
Yes.
So what do you see, like, when do you see this change, or when do you think this change? I know it's happening, but when do you think there's going to be like a true change in regards to how building materials are used and shifting over more to timber than steel and concrete?
So again, we live in a society where house frames are built out of wood. Um, and so the change is quickly happening here in the United States because it's a material that we understand.
Mhm.
We understand how to build and how to frame with wood. And what's happening is the technology is now available for creating structural elements out of wood. So it's layered wood essentially, and then it has the properties, the quality, the strength that, let's say, metal has.
Mhm.
or that concrete has. So it's something that's already happening. It's something that's already happening, and more and more and more people are incorporating that. And not only that, but um, I don't know if you know I know you've realized how the prices of food are increasing.
Yes.
um, there is a shift. There has been a significant shift, and that shift is now society is beginning to pay for the environmental cost of things.
Got it. Sorry, I'm looking at
That's
your
the
FAQs as well as you're sharing that, because I was
Yeah.
like, because it actually has some information like in regards to if they're subject to capital tax gains. So you want to make sure that you know, get with your tax person in regards to that. It's talking about if people are concerned about their tree not surviving, what the guarantees are, that you have on-site security to protect the forest. um, so I
Yes.
think there's a lot of information that we probably can't, I know we can't get all through all of those,
Yes.
but um but your website really has a lot of great information. When you're talking about the social impact that it has, I want to share it because I think this is very, very important. I know one of the things that you're saying is the job creation, but one thing we didn't that is on here that you didn't talk about is the education. So each purchase of high value hardwood trees helps provide education for people in need living in rural locations across Guatemala. And online education. So, in conjunction with Colegio del Futuro, students receive access to excellent online courses using a smartphone or tablet. Students enrolled in the Colegio del Futuro system are performing in the top 6% of Central America. And then, obviously, cultural preservation. So, it says Stones of Light is focused on preservation of families and culture. Students are educated in their home villages. I think, and obviously, the job creation is a really huge thing within those areas as well. So it is there's a lot of upside, you know, beyond the financial to be able to invest, because you're not only investing in your future, you're kind of investing in the future of others, especially kids in Guatemala and job creation in Guatemala. Am I wrong in saying that?
Oh, no, no, absolutely. Well, it all begins by providing jobs where there are no jobs, and when we provide jobs, we provide jobs for multiple generations. You know, when you're talking about a tree that needs to be cultivated for 20 years, it means that if we were not to plant any more forests, if 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 the trees that we currently have, we have about 16,000 trees currently on the ground. If we didn't plant a single more tree, we would need to provide jobs for 20 years that it takes to for these trees to mature.
Mhm.
So yes, you are providing jobs in rural parts, in this case of Guatemala, and we're now looking to expand this project further into Guatemala, and that is the reason why the focus of our site has shifted from a citizen participation only model now into speaking into the listening of families and investment groups that have the resources so that we can expand our projects um, faster, because we need more trees. Um, and yes, this is an impact investment initiative.
And just as a reminder, this is not impacting land, taking away from people. This is really recultivating and recultivating land that has already been used, that the nutrients and the minerals have been pulled from it. So this is a way to give back to it in order for those things to be able to be present in the land again, right? And it's not taking away from where people are living.
Oh no, absolutely. So I just came back from that region of the world, and I met with the Rainforest Alliance. And the way we're looking to expand is by having um, families that have plots of land. What we will be doing in a nutshell is we'll be renting their farm, and we will be educating these families as to how to cultivate our trees. So what we're doing through our expansion model is we're going to be generating value for the land, because you generate value in the land through rents. Like anything else,
Mhm.
when anything generates income, that is how it generates value. So when we pay a rent to someone that owns a local that owns a farm, and then we provide them with a job and education as to how to cultivate and grow these trees, we are going to, this now becomes a development, a type of project. So social, economic, and environmental development.
Whew, there's a lot. Well, I will tell everybody, go to the website. We'll make sure it's in the show notes because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information. Like I said, you've clarified some things for me in regards to what I was reading, and I hope that it clarifies things for other people. The hour has just gone by very, very quickly, but I always like to give people the opportunity to share anything that maybe I haven't asked, because honestly, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I'm just kind of like I'm like looking and I'm like, okay, what about this? Or what about this? Or what about this? But if there's anything that you want to add, or maybe something that I haven't asked that you want to ensure that you're able to say, please share that now.
Yeah, there's a website. It's goodalways.com, and that is where our citizen participation initiative lives, working in conjunction with Stones of Light and Light It Forward foundations. That is where those are our partners in the citizen participation initiative. So if you're interested in investing 50,000 or more, go to azucenas.org. If you're interested in investing in a tree or two or five or 10, go to goodalways.com.
Well, I will definitely be talking to my boyfriend about this and maybe investing in at least one tree for now.
Yes.
So I think that's really, really cool what you're doing. But Alain, thank you so much for sharing this information, for making sure that people know about it. I think it's something that, to be perfectly honest, maybe some of our listeners have heard before, but I hadn't really heard of this before. So, like I said, I was like a toddler walking for the first, or a baby walking for the first time. Now I'm a toddler. I can navigate a little bit more. So I really appreciate you sharing that information. And like I said, we'll make sure to include all of the links in the show notes, as well as social media. How can people find you on social media as well?
Through our website, Azucenas_hardwoods.
And those will be again on the website as well.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Elaine. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story, I just had so much. I know I cut your story short, but I just was like, there's so much to talk about in regards to this. I really wanted to get to it because I, again, know nothing. And I'm sure there's plenty of my listeners that never heard of this before. And I'm sure there's some that I have. So if you have, you guys are way, way ahead of the curve on this one. So muchísimas gracias. And until next time, mi gente. Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.